Picture this. You're alone in your kitchen at night. It's quiet. The light is low. Maybe there's a hum from the fridge. You bump a chair. It scrapes the floor, and before you even think, you whisper, "Oh, sorry," to a piece of furniture. No one is there. No one is upset. Yet your brain still reacts like you just did something wrong. Most people believe that constant apologizing, this chronic guilt, means you're extra caring, extra moral, almost a better person with a stronger conscience. But that's backwards. Your brain is not showing off how good you are. It's misfiring its guilt system like a smoke alarm that screams every time you make toast. And this is not a dramatic metaphor. Psychologists actually describe excessive or inappropriate guilt as a pattern where you feel responsible for events you didn't cause and can't control. In other words, your brain has quietly decided if anything might be wrong, it must somehow be your fault. Someone's in a bad mood. Your first
thought, what did I do? A text is left on read. Your brain starts building a whole courtroom case against you. This is because guilt, at its core, is a survival tool. Your brain evolved to keep you in the tribe, to protect relationships, to stop you from breaking rules that could get you rejected and left alone. Healthy guilt is like a quick tap on the shoulder. Hey, that was out of line. Fix it. It's supposed to guide behavior, not dominate your entire internal environment. But here's the shift. When guilt becomes constant background noise, it stops being protective and starts draining your discipline. The same mental energy that could be used for focus, habits, long-term goals is being burned on self-interrogation. You replay conversations instead of planning your day. You analyze your tone instead of taking the next step on your project. That takes real effort. It feels exhausting because it is exhausting. You're not lazy, you're not weak. Your brain is quietly spending willpower and motivation on scanning for what you might have done wrong. Imagine how much reward you could create in your life if that energy was redirected into practice, learning, health, building something you actually care about. So in this video, we're going to treat your guilt the same way we treat discipline, not as a moral verdict, but as a design problem. We'll look at why your brain assumes you're always at fault, how childhood conditioning, criticism, and anxiety wired that pattern in, and more importantly, how to retrain that wiring. So you stop apologizing for existing and start using that energy to build a life you actually want. Because once your guilt alarm stops going off for no reason, you finally have the quiet you need to grow. So let's zoom out and challenge one of the sneakiest assumptions you've been living with, the idea that feeling more guilt automatically means you're a better person. Most people secretly believe this. If you lie awake replaying every conversation, if you say sorry 20 times a day, the story in your head is, well, at least it means I care. At least it means I have a conscience. In other words, the more you suffer, the more moral you must be. But that's not how it works. Psychologists have a term for this: inappropriate guilt. It means feeling responsible for things you didn't cause and couldn't control. And this is not a character judgment, it is a neurobiological pattern. Your brain is firing a guilt alarm the same way an overly sensitive smoke detector goes off every time you make toast. The problem is you keep assuming if the alarm is loud, the danger must be real. But guilt did not evolve to be a moral scorecard. It evolved as a survival system. In tiny tribes, your life depended on staying included. If you hurt someone, took more food than your share, or snapped at the wrong person, you risked being pushed out of the group. In that environment, rejection did not just mean awkwardness. It meant no fire, no protection, no help when you were sick. In other words, guilt was your early warning radar. You damaged a bond. Go repair it, or you might not survive. Your brain's number one job is not to make you virtuous. It is to keep you alive with the least possible effort. So it built a system where social pain feels almost like physical pain. You feel a pang in your chest, your stomach drops, your thoughts race to what you did wrong, and you rush to fix it so you can get that immediate reward, relief, safety, and guess what? That ancient software is still running, but your environment has completely changed. You're no longer in a tribe of 50 faces you know. You're swimming in hundreds of texts, emails, unread messages, passing comments from strangers. Someone is quiet in a meeting. Your survival brain lights up. What did I do? How do I fix this? A friend replies late. They're mad at me. Your boss uses a short sentence in an email. I must have failed some invisible test. In this space, your guilt system is over-personalizing everything. It treats every frown as if it must be about you. Every delay as proof you failed some invisible test. No wonder your discipline and motivation feel drained. You are spending massive energy trying to manage threats that do not actually exist. So here is the reframe. Chronic guilt is not evidence that you're secretly a bad person. It is your survival brain overfiring in a modern world it was never designed for. Once you see that, you can stop confessing to crimes you never committed and start taking your discipline back from anxiety. In the next part, we'll break down how that overactive guilt alarm got wired in and how to start turning the volume down. So let's zoom in from big brain theory to what this actually looks like on a Tuesday afternoon. Because chronic guilt does not just live in philosophy, it lives in your notifications, your meetings, your evenings on the couch. Imagine you send a text to a friend, a normal message, maybe a tiny joke. An hour passes, then two, no reply. Your survival brain does not say, they're probably busy. It says, what did I do wrong? In other words, your mind instantly opens a full investigation, with you as the only suspect. You replay the message 10 times. You analyze every word, every emoji, the timing, the last 3 conversations. You feel a wave of guilt and embarrassment long before you check any facts. And this is not because you're dramatic or needy. This is because your brain has learned that if something feels off in the environment, the safest explanation is, it's my fault. Same pattern at work. A coworker is unusually quiet in a meeting. They don't laugh at your comment. They look down at their laptop. They leave quickly. Instantly, your mental search engine pulls up your last interaction and scans it 20 times. Did I say something stupid? Did that email sound rude? Your brain is not considering their lack of sleep, their deadlines, their family stress. It's using a shortcut called personalization. If something feels wrong, you must be the cause. Socially, it can be just as intense. A friend seems distant at dinner, checking their phone, giving short answers. Instead of thinking, they might be anxious today, you feel this heavy pull of guilt. You apologize more. You over-explain. You offer extra help. The problem? Your discipline, your motivation, your mental energy are now being burned on managing imaginary crimes instead of real life. Even rest is not safe. You finally take an evening off, no emails, no chores, just a show and some snacks. For a moment it feels like a reward, then the guilt creeps in. You hear a voice saying, you're wasting time. You should be working, you should be learning, you should be improving. So you do not truly rest, but you also do not do deep work. You wake up the next day, tired, unfocused, somehow still feeling behind. Watch what's happening here. None of. This means you are broken. Your brain is using fast, imperfect shortcuts, mind reading, catastrophizing, personalization to create an illusion of control. If everything is my fault, then maybe I can fix everything. That used to feel like survival, but that wiring can be changed. And in the next part, we're going to open up where those guilt shortcuts usually start and how to finally teach your brain a different story. That different story has to deal with one uncomfortable truth. Your brain is ancient hardware trying to run modern life on survival mode. You wake up to notifications, messages from work, family group chat, a friend's long voice note. There are performance reviews, unread emails, social media comments, and this quiet, constant pressure to be available, kind, productive, emotionally flawless. In other words, your daily environment is like standing in the middle of a stadium with 1,000 people watching you, even when you're just eating breakfast. Now, imagine your brain as a tribe member sitting at a campfire 10,000 years ago. Its main job is simple. Do they still like me? Am I safe here? One weird look from the chief. One long silence from the group. And your survival might genuinely be at risk. And guess what? That same brain is now scanning every typing bubble, every delayed reply, every neutral face on a Zoom call as if it's that same campfire moment. Did I just do something that will get me kicked out? The problem? Your ancestors had maybe 20 to 50 people to track, a few key relationships, a few clear signals. Today you might have hundreds of contacts, multiple group chats, co-workers, managers, followers, distant relatives, all feeding your nervous system microsignals all day long. Your guilt system gets overloaded. It throws out false alarms as a crude survival strategy. No reply. You must have said something wrong. Colleague looks tired in a meeting. You must have disappointed them. Partner is quiet. You must have failed them somehow. Watch what happens. Guilt becomes the default explanation, not the exception. Here's the shift. Monitoring for what did I do wrong costs energy, a lot of it. Every time your brain spins up that analysis, it's burning the same mental fuel you need for discipline, focus, long-term goals. By the time you sit down to work, study, or go to the gym, your willpower is already half spent on imaginary social emergencies. You think you lack motivation. You think you are lazy. But your brain has been running a full-time security operation, scanning for social threats that mostly do not exist. Of course, you feel too tired to push through discomfort. Your effort has been quietly redirected toward guilt. Pattern interrupt. Imagine, just for one day, that every "did I mess up?" thought vanished. How much extra focus would you suddenly have? This is the conflict you're living in. The modern world expects calm, confident performance, perfect emails, steady mood, flawless boundaries, while your ancient guilt system is firing like a car alarm in a thunderstorm. It is not your fault that your survival wiring overreacts, but it is your responsibility to understand it and redesign how you relate to it. In the next part, we'll start turning that overactive inner alarm into a quieter, more accurate signal you can actually work with. That overactive alarm you feel? Psychologists actually have a name for it. They call it excessive or inappropriate guilt. Feeling responsible for events you didn't cause, couldn't control, or are quietly exaggerating in your mind. In other words, your brain keeps stamping "my fault" on situations that are objectively way outside your power. Your friend is in a bad mood. You immediately scan your last message. A co-worker is quiet in a meeting. You replay yesterday's email. Someone doesn't text back for 3 hours. Your brain builds a whole courtroom drama where you're on trial. This is because an overactive guilt system is often wired early. If you grew up with a lot of criticism, strict rules. Unpredictable reactions, blaming yourself, was not a personality quirk. It was a survival strategy. If I can just be perfect, maybe I'll be safe. That pattern trains your inner judge to assume you're the cause of every storm, even when you're nowhere near the clouds. Psychologists also talk about cognitive distortions that pour fuel on this fire. Personalization makes you interpret neutral events as proof you did something wrong. Mind reading convinces you you know exactly what people think, and spoiler, it is never flattering. Catastrophizing jumps straight to, if they're angry, I'll lose the relationship, my reputation, maybe everything. Every one of those patterns keeps your brain stuck in permanent self-prosecution mode. Watch what's really happening. Chronic guilt is not just an emotion problem. It is a discipline problem. Research links constant guilt with anxiety and depression, and those states crush motivation, decision-making, self-control. Your mental energy is already drained from running worst-case simulations. Of course, you struggle to start the project, set the boundary, or stick to the long-term plan. Your willpower budget has been blown on apologizing for existing. Most people believe the solution is to toughen up and stop being so sensitive, but that's backwards. The problem is not that you are weak. The problem is that your emotional environment, while your habits of thinking, your learned rules, your inner voice has been designed to trigger guilt automatically. Just like with habits, the system beats raw effort. Think about people who seem calm, unapologetic, almost suspiciously unbothered. They are not morally superior. Their inner judge is simply calibrated differently. Their brain does not flag every delay, frown, or silence as a threat to survival, so they are not wasting as much energy on internal trials. That spare energy becomes available for focus, creativity, actual external discipline. So the real skill is not never feel guilty. It is emotional discipline, being able to choose when guilt is a useful signal and when it is just noise. This does not come from shaming yourself into being tougher. It comes from understanding how your brain learned its rules and then deliberately redesigning how it reacts. In the next part, we'll turn that idea into concrete tools so you can retrain your inner judge and get your energy back for the life you actually want to build. So let's make one thing very clear right now. You are not the problem. If your first reaction to almost anything is, "What did I do wrong?" that doesn't mean you're broken. It means your brain has been trained to over-confess as a way to feel safe. In other words, guilt became your seatbelt, tight, uncomfortable, but it felt like the only thing keeping you from crashing. That overactive inner judge you carry around is not some mystical voice of truth. It's learned software. At some point, your survival system decided, if I take the blame first, maybe I won't be abandoned, yelled at, or blindsided. Children in strict, critical, or chaotic homes often discover that apologizing for everything lowers the temperature in the room. You got less yelling, less tension, maybe even a tiny bit more warmth. In that scenario, guilt is not morality, it's strategy. So in this video, we're going to dismantle 3 big illusions that keep that strategy running long after you need it. Illusion number 1. If you feel guilty, you must have done something wrong. Illusion number 2. The more guilt you feel, the more moral or responsible you are. Illusion number 3. The only way to change is to be even harder on yourself. The problem is all 3 feel noble, but they quietly drain your discipline, your motivation, your joy. Here's the shift. Your brain cannot tell the difference between anxiety and conscience if no one ever taught it the difference. So you end up confusing a racing heart, a tight chest, a spiral of what IFS, with proof that you're a bad person. You take responsibility for other people's emotions, your friend's silence, your partner's bad mood, your co-worker's short email, and your brain logs all of it as evidence against you. Over time, guilt even turns into a twisted form of motivation. You whip yourself with harsh self-talk to get moving. If I feel terrible enough, I'll finally change. It works for a moment, the same way panic can get you to sprint. But chronic panic is not a training plan. Chronic guilt is the same. It burns massive amounts of mental energy. So when it's time to use discipline for long-term goals, studying, creating, setting boundaries, you are already exhausted. So here's what we're going to rebuild instead. First, we'll walk through how this wiring got installed, the criticism, the trauma, the unpredictable environments that taught your brain guilt equals safety. Then we'll expose the cognitive distortions, mind reading, catastrophizing, personalizing, that keep the guilt-anxiety loop alive. Finally, we'll get very practical. Specific questions to test your guilt, scripts for saying no without apologizing for existing, and small daily habits that train a healthier inner judge. This video will not judge you while you do it. The goal is to give you language, tools, a new way of thinking. So you stop spending discipline on self-punishment and start spending it on growth, boundaries, real goals. Because once your inner judge is no longer running the show, something surprising happens next. And that's what we're about to uncover. So let's zoom in on the machine that keeps shouting, "It's your fault." Because your inner judge is not just a personality quirk. It's an old piece of survival software running on very modern hardware, your brain. For most of human history, your biggest threat was not a bad performance review. It was being kicked out of the tribe. In a small, hostile environment, losing connection meant losing protection, food, safety. And guess what? In that world, it was actually smart to be hyper-attuned to other people's reactions. If someone frowned, your brain learned to assume, "I messed up," and fix it fast because social harmony was literal survival. Your brain was built to prioritize immediate social safety over long-term emotional accuracy. In other words, it's faster and cheaper in terms of energy to think, "I must have done something wrong," than to carefully analyze 10 different explanations for why your friend is quiet today. The quick self-blame response may feel harsh, but for your ancient nervous system, it was a form of discipline. Instantly adjust, apologize, appease, stay in the group. Here's the shift. This guilt software is old, fast, and automatic. It runs before your logical thinking even boots up. The problem, your environment has changed, but the code has not. Now you feel guilty for resting, for saying no to extra work, or for walking past a coworker and not smiling big enough as if any tiny social wobble still equals danger. To make all of this efficient, the brain uses shortcuts. Psychologists call them cognitive distortions, but you experience them as habits of thought. Personalization says, if something went wrong, it must be about me. Mind reading decides they're quiet, so they must be angry with me. Catastrophizing jumps straight to, if they're angry, I'll lose the relationship, my reputation, maybe everything. Your brain thinks it is protecting you from worst-case outcomes by rehearsing them non-stop. From a survival perspective, these shortcuts were clever. They saved effort. They let you react instantly instead of running a full investigation every time someone changed their tone of voice. But in modern life, they misfire constantly. A delayed text becomes a moral failure. A partner's bad mood becomes proof you are a burden. A simple boundary, like turning off your phone, feels like a crime. And underneath all of this is a very practical rule: conserve energy. Your brain likes explanations that are simple and familiar. "It's my fault" is incredibly cheap to generate. No research, no ambiguity, no uncertainty, just instant blame. That saves mental energy in the moment, even if it drains your motivation and discipline in the long term. So you end up apologizing for existing, burning willpower on guilt instead of growth. Your brain is still trying to keep you safe. It's just using an outdated map. Next, we'll look at how your early environment can turn this old survival code into a lifelong personality pattern, and how to start rewriting it on purpose. That outdated map usually gets installed in one place: home. Not because your caregivers were monsters, but because your young brain was trying to survive an environment that did not feel stable. In some homes, the rules change depending on the mood. One day, a joke was cute. The next day, the same joke was disrespectful. Affection might have been conditional. You were praised when you performed. You went quiet when you struggled. Mistakes were met not with calm guidance, but with anger, shame, icy withdrawal. In other words, love felt like a reward you had to earn, not something you could trust. The problem: a child cannot say, "My caregivers are inconsistent." A child says, "It must be me." Your brain, wired for survival, starts running a very intense experiment. If I can just be good enough, careful enough, apologetic enough, maybe I can keep the peace. In that environment, self-blame feels safer than believing the adults are unpredictable. Blaming yourself at least gives you the illusion of control. So you develop a survival strategy that looks a lot like overactive discipline. You scan every expression, every silence, every sigh. You replay conversations, looking for what you did wrong. You apologize first, over-explain everything, try to fix problems you did not create. And guess what? In that home, it often worked. You got less yelling, less tension, maybe even a tiny bit more warmth. Here's the shift. Your brain does not file that away as childhood coping. It files it under standard operating procedure. Guilt becomes an early warning system. Feel guilty fast. Take responsibility for everything. Maybe you can prevent rejection or conflict. Your nervous system learns guilt equals safety. Fast forward to adulthood and the environment has changed, but the code is still running. You apologize for asking a simple question at work. You feel guilty for resting on a Sunday because some old voice says you should be productive. You send an email and then feel compelled to add a second email explaining why you sent the first email, just in case they're disappointed. You burn energy overthinking a delayed text, assuming you offended someone, when they just put their phone down. Watch what happens here. Your brain is spending willpower on imaginary emergencies. Chronic guilt keeps you on high alert, which quietly drains your motivation for real, long-term goals. You are so busy preventing disaster that you have no effort left to build the life you actually want. And yet, that wiring made sense. It kept you emotionally safer in a strict or chaotic home. You were not broken. You were adaptive. Now, as an adult, you have both the right and the power to update that system. In the next section, we'll break down how to train healthier inner judge. So guilt becomes a useful signal, not your default identity. So let's zoom in on what actually happens moment by moment when guilt runs your system. Because if you've ever thought, why am I so tired and undisciplined when I care this much? This loop is the reason. It usually starts with something completely neutral. You send a message and there's no reply. Your friend sounds a bit off. Your manager types a short email without a smiley face. Your brain doesn't say, there are many possible explanations. It jumps straight to one conclusion. I did something wrong. The problem? Your body treats that thought like a real threat. Your heart rate nudges up, your stomach tightens, your mind starts scanning for evidence, anxiety kicks in, and to get rid of that anxious feeling, you start doing damage control. You over-apologize. Sorry if I bothered you. You over-explain long paragraphs to prove you're not upset, not lazy, not rude. Or you overwork, staying late, taking on extra tasks, trying to earn back a forgiveness that no one actually asked you to earn. And guess what? For a moment, it works. The apology or extra effort gives you a tiny hit of relief. A small reward. Your brain goes, danger reduced. In other words, you accidentally trained your discipline to serve guilt. Your willpower is now being spent on managing imagined crises instead of building your real life. Here's the shift. All of that spinning uses the exact same mental fuel you need for focus, planning, self-control. Your brain only has so much energy for deliberate effort each day. Concentration, decision-making, and emotional regulation all draw from a shared pool of resources. So when you've spent the morning rehearsing apologies in your head, by the afternoon, sitting down to study or work out feels impossible. Then anxiety makes everything worse. When you're tired and keyed up, your brain becomes even more biased toward negative interpretations. A delayed text becomes proof you annoyed them. A yawn in a meeting becomes proof you're boring. You see more evidence that you're at fault, which creates more guilt, which creates more anxiety, which steals more discipline. It's a self-feeding loop. Most people look at that drained, anxious state and label it laziness or no motivation. But that's backwards. You are not starting the day with zero discipline. You are starting the day with discipline already half spent on emotional survival. The problem, therefore, is not that you do not care enough. It is that your inner judge keeps sending your effort to the wrong places. Breaking this cycle does not mean you stop caring or become selfish. It means you train a different inner response, one that pauses and questions guilt instead of instantly obeying it. In the next section, we'll step inside that moment between I feel guilty and I must fix this, and quietly rewire what happens there. So let's put a clear name on what you're actually fighting in that moment between I feel guilty and I must fix this. You're not battling weak willpower or a broken moral compass. You're stuck in a design conflict between what your brain is built to protect and what you are trying to build. Your brain's primary job is simple: survival, comfort, conserving energy. It wants you safe, accepted, out of danger. And guess what? It defines danger as anything that risks rejection, disapproval, short-term discomfort. You, on the other hand, want things your ancient wiring never planned for: long-term projects, clear boundaries, deep rest, a life that actually fits you. In other words, your goals require you to do things that feel uncomfortable right now: saying no, turning off your phone, leaving messages unread, stopping at good enough. But your brain is constantly scanning the environment for social threats, and here's the shift. It uses guilt as a fast, efficient alarm to keep you compliant and pleasing. This is because in an unpredictable childhood or a highly critical home, guilt often worked as a survival strategy. If you blamed yourself first, apologized first, fixed everything first, you could reduce conflict and stay safer. That old strategy gets automated, so as an adult, your brain still fires guilt anytime you prioritize your own time, your own needs, your own mental health, even when nothing is actually wrong. There are two competing agendas. Your guilt system wants you to say yes, apologize for existing, over-explain, over-perform so no one can possibly be upset with you. You want to say no to extra work, protect your energy. Focus on the few things that move your life forward. The problem: every time you move towards self-respect, your brain interprets it as a threat to survival. So what happens emotionally? You live in a constant tug-of-war. You finally decline a favor so you can rest. And 5 minutes later, you're replaying the conversation, imagining their disappointment. You take a weekend for yourself, and your motivation to enjoy it gets crushed by images of people silently judging you. You try to focus on your long-term goals, but guilt drags your attention back to managing everyone else's reactions. Over time, this leaves you frustrated, exhausted, feeling strangely unsuccessful even when you're working hard. Every step toward a healthier boundary triggers a backlash of guilt that pulls you back into overgiving and over-apologizing. It is not that you are weak. Your inner judge is simply outdated. Once you see this as a design conflict, you can stop attacking yourself and start updating the system. In the next section, we'll map exactly how that guilt alarm gets triggered and how to quietly rewire it so your brain's need for safety finally supports instead of sabotages the life you're trying to create. So here's the principle that changes everything. Don't try to whip yourself into discipline with guilt. Design your world and your inner dialogue for self-respect. In other words, stop asking, how do I make myself feel bad enough to change? And start asking, how do I make the kind choice for myself the easiest one to follow? Most people secretly believe guilt is a good fuel. If I feel bad enough about skipping the gym, I'll finally go. If I shame myself for overworking, I'll set boundaries. The problem? Guilt-based discipline is like running your brain on emergency power. It might light things up for a moment, but it burns out your energy and fries the system over time. This is because when you push yourself with, "I'm bad if I don't," your brain links action with threat, not reward. Yes, you might get short bursts of effort. You force yourself to say yes, stay late, fix everyone's problems. But in the background, resentment and anxiety start building. And guess what? Your brain is very good at avoiding what feels like chronic danger. So you procrastinate, you overthink, you disappear from messages. Not because you're lazy, but because your survival wiring is slamming on the brakes. Now add fatigue. When you are tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your brain drops back to autopilot. In this scenario, if autopilot is built on guilt and people-pleasing, you default to over-apologizing, over-explaining, over-giving. You say sorry for existing, then have no energy left for your long-term goals. When your willpower is lowest, the old script runs strongest. So let's contrast two systems. System 1 assumes you are always at fault. Your schedule is packed. Rest is a reward you have to earn. Every missed task sends you into an inner courtroom. You play defense all day, explaining why you are not as bad as your inner judge claims. Discipline here means constant self-cross-examination. System 2 starts from self-respect. You pre-decide boundaries, no work emails after 8 p.m., one night a week that is non-negotiable, rest, a pause before you apologize. You design your environment so recovery is obvious and easy. Book on the pillow, phone in another room, calendar blocks that say unavailable without a 500-word explanation. Guilt becomes a signal to question, not obey. Is this really my responsibility or just my old wiring? Here's the shift. Real discipline with guilt means less time in court with your inner judge, more time building systems where the kind choice is also the automatic one. In the next part, we'll get concrete and show you exactly how to redesign that autopilot so your brain's need for comfort finally works for your growth instead of against it. So let's flip the script. Up to now, guilt has probably felt like a verdict. The inner judge bangs the gavel. You obey, no questions asked. But what if guilt was not a verdict at all? What if it was just a hypothesis your brain throws out that you are allowed to test? Most people believe that if they feel guilty, it must mean they did something wrong. But that's backwards. This is because guilt, especially excessive guilt, is often just old survival wiring firing automatically. In other words, your brain learned, if I blame myself quickly, maybe I can stay safe. That might have helped in a chaotic childhood environment. It does not help you build a calm, disciplined adult life. So here's the pattern interrupt. Next time guilt shows up, instead of confessing, you investigate. You use a simple 3-question script. Question 1. What exactly am I accusing myself of? Not the vague fog of I'm a bad friend, but the specific charge. I think I was rude in that message. Question 2. What evidence do I actually have? Not guesses, not mind reading, actual facts. Question 3. What other explanations are possible? And guess what? This is where your brain starts to unlock. Let's test it in real life. You send a text. No reply for 6 hours. Your old wiring says, "They're mad. I messed up." Pause. Hypothesis mode. What exactly am I accusing myself of? Maybe I said something annoying. What evidence do I have? No reply. That's it. What other explanations are possible? Their phone died. They're working. They forgot. In this scenario, your emotional outcome shifts from spiraling apology drafts to I'll wait and see. Same event, less wasted energy. Another example, someone at home is in a bad mood. Immediately, your brain whispers, "What did I do wrong?" Run the script. Accusation. I upset them. Evidence. They are quiet. That is not proof. Other explanations. They're tired. They're stressed. They're hungry. Personalization makes you the main character in everyone else's weather report. The hypothesis approach gently takes you out of the center. Or you take a break. Say no to a request. Close the laptop on time. Old pattern. Instant guilt, then overcorrecting, then burnout. New pattern. I'm accusing myself of being selfish. What evidence do I have? My body is exhausted. I had plans. Other explanations? This is basic maintenance, not a crime. Now your discipline protects your long-term goals instead of sacrificing them for immediate people-pleasing. Here's the shift. Every time you pause and question guilt instead of obeying it, you are literally retraining your brain. You weaken the old pathway that equates guilt with danger, and you strengthen a new one that checks reality first. Over time, your default becomes calmer, more precise, less anxious. And this is a discipline upgrade. You are not becoming less responsible. You are redirecting serious mental effort away from self-punishment and into accurate perception. That frees motivation and energy for real action, studying, creating, setting boundaries that last. In the next section, we'll turn this script into a daily practice, so testing guilt becomes as automatic as feeling it used to be. So now that you're testing your guilt instead of automatically obeying it, the next step is to actually retrain the judge inside your head. In other words, you're not just cross-examining the verdict anymore, you're rewriting the law it uses. We start with something that sounds soft but is actually a high-performance tool: self-compassion. Most people think, oh, if I go easy on myself, I'll become lazy. But research shows the opposite. People who respond to mistakes with kindness are more likely to take responsibility, correct the problem, try again. This is because your brain learns. It's safe to see the truth. I won't be executed for it. That safety frees up discipline and motivation that guilt used to strangle. So you need a quick script. The next time guilt spikes, you pause and say, "I'm feeling guilty." That's step 1. Label the emotion instead of becoming it. Step 2, normalize it. A lot of people would feel this way in this situation. You're reminding your brain this isn't some personal, moral failure. It's a common human reaction. Step 3, redirect. What's the most constructive thing I can do now? Maybe it's apologizing. Maybe it's fixing the mistake. Maybe it's simply moving on. And guess what? Even when you discover you truly did nothing wrong, that question still shifts you from self-attack into forward motion. Next, boundaries. If you've been trained to feel guilty for existing, saying no will light up your nervous system like an alarm. So you keep practice on purpose in low-risk situations. You decline a small favor. You end a conversation 5 minutes earlier. You do not write a 3-paragraph explanation. Then you do the hardest part, nothing. You sit there and let the guilt wash through your body without rushing to fix it. In this scenario, your brain is running an old survival program that says, if they're upset, I'm not safe. But the world does not end. Your relationships don't implode. Your nervous system slowly learns a new rule. I can protect my time and still be a good person. Now we add cognitive restructuring, which is just mental debugging. You catch distortions like personalization and catastrophizing and put them on paper. My friend was quiet. I must have done something wrong. Then you force your brain to generate at least 2 non-self-blaming explanations. They're tired, they're stressed about work. Here's the shift. You are not trying to feel instantly better. You're training your mind to consider more than one story. Each time you do any of this, you're in the mental gym. Questioning. Guilt is 1 rep. Using the self-compassion script is another. Holding a boundary while your chest buzzes with anxiety is a heavy deadlift for your discipline. You're building the muscle that will later protect. Your focus, your energy, your long-term goals, even when your old wiring screams at you to abandon them. But how do you turn these tools into something automatic so they fire in real time without a 20-minute therapy session in your head? That's exactly what we'll build next. Let's close the loop. You started this video seeing guilt almost like a moral scorecard. If it lit up, you assumed you must have done something wrong. But that's backwards. We've seen that a lot of your guilt is actually an overactive survival system. A brain wired by evolution to avoid rejection, shaped by childhood rules, and hijacked by cognitive shortcuts that jump straight to, "It's my fault." In other words, your brain is not trying to torture you. It is trying to keep you safe using very outdated software. Strict parents, unpredictable moods, constant criticism trained that system to overfire. Cognitive distortions like personalizing and mind reading then keep it stuck on repeat. The problem? This constant alarm drains your discipline, your energy, your motivation before you even get to your real long-term goals. And guess what? That means you are not the problem. The design is, chronic guilt is not proof you're a better person. It is proof your inner judge never got upgraded. Real discipline does not come from harsher self-attack. This is because fear eventually burns out. Real discipline comes from redesigning your inner judge and your environment so that your effort goes toward growth instead of endless self-interrogation. So imagine this for a second. You move through a day and you say sorry 5 times instead of 50. You rest on the couch for 20 minutes and your brain does not launch a courtroom drama about laziness. A friend sounds distant. Guilt shows up. Instead of confessing to crimes you did not commit, you pause and ask, What else could this mean? In this scenario, guilt becomes a hypothesis, not a verdict. Here's the shift. That future version of you is not built on one big breakthrough. It is built on tiny, repeated votes. So here is your challenge. For the next 24 hours, track every moment of guilt. Mentally or on paper, note each spike. Then, next to it, ask, did I actually do something wrong, or is this old wiring? You will be surprised how many alarms go off when nothing is burning. Then, pick one of those moments you are willing to reinterpret and share it in the comments. Not a full biography, just one example you are ready to see differently. This is your first public vote for a new identity. Not guilty by default, but a deliberate inner judge who investigates before sentencing. To keep this alive, rewatch the sections that hit you hardest. Share this with the person in your life who apologizes for existing. And for the next week, commit to one practice. Every time guilt appears, ask, hypothesis or fact? That single question is how you start reclaiming your discipline, your focus, and your energy from false guilt, and redirect it toward the life you actually want to build.